Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're waiting a few more minutes as more people join. Also, just a note for those of you who joined early, or I should say on time, is you can put any questions you have for us anytime during the webinar in the question drop-down menu. You should see that, at least on my screen, it's to the right of my screen in the control panel. And so you can post any question, and at the end of the webinar, we'll go through the questions and answer them. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for joining us. This is a webinar on engaging with attendees. The goal of this webinar will be to give you some tips about what to talk about with attendees at your event, how to talk to them, and some really good tools and resources you can provide them. All right, and our presenters today will be Eric Cahill from Plug-in America, as well as myself. And also, thank you so much to Guy Hall from the Electric Auto Association. He's done tons of events, and he'll be giving lots of tips today. All right, Guy, I'll pass it along to you.
Oops, I had to quickly unmute myself. Thank you, Kylie. Hey, I got to tell you, Kylie, I'm really excited about the Endu this year. I mean, not only do we have more, a richer set of cars out there and more owners of the.
Guy, I don't hear you right now if you're speaking.
I am speaking. I've got the mic says that I should be able to hear me.
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry about that, Guy. I can hear you.
Okay. Anyway, I was just saying that I was excited about the event that's Endu this year. I mean, we've got a great set of cars now that are starting to come on the market, and we're getting a lot, substantial number of, I guess, more this year than prior years of events and venues. But also, what I've seen is just some of the dialogue going on is that the quality of the events is really taking a step up. So I'm excited about that. So I'm really great to see this happening. Now, many of the events and the venues have they're self-contained. They've invited people to and promoted the event, have people come. But a lot of the events are adjacent to some other event that will also be attracting visitors and people passing by, and that's great because you can then try to pull in people who hadn't been thinking about an electric car. But the challenge is to engage those folks. Often they're on a mission to get from where they are to get to some sort of task, shopping, or back to their car or back home. So you got to break that mission and give it a pause to them so they can have a conversation with you. And you want to make sure that this conversation is that you're not going to just be like a salesperson, but this is an authentic conversation from your experience and from your viewpoint. But let's make it a sort of a real conversation. Next slide, Kylie. All right. So when I first started doing this, my personal experience, I would ask people going by, any questions about electric cars? Didn't seem to work. They would say, no, thank you, and no, and then they just keep on walking. It didn't really, wasn't effective. It seemed when I asked them a question like that, they would have to think about what they hadn't been thinking about. So they're trying to come up with an answer if they did have a question one time. It's kind of they're on the spot, uncomfortable, and again, they're not inclined to necessarily stop and talk with you. Next, Kylie. But this is a question, or questions similar to this have been far more effective. I mean, 8 out of 10 times that really people stop, and that is to ask them a very simple question. Have you ever driven an electric car? And this means they typically will stop and they'll think. They have to think back in their their personal history. Have they ever been in an electric car? Now, there's three different answers that they tend to come up with. The simple one, of course, is no. And then you can take that no and say, wow, you really ought to try some of these. They're exciting, and they save you money. And by the way, we have a little setup here with local dealers came together, and we're creating a little, what I like to call speed dating, but with electric cars. So, 5 minutes on a car and such, and try it back to back and such. The other answer they might give would be, yes, they've driven an electric car, and they're thinking of a hybrid, like a basic Prius. And so you have to kind of say, well, we're thinking when we talk about electric cars, we're thinking of those that have a plug. Prius Prime is a great example, but there you now see you're already starting in that conversation there. And you can keep moving that forward. And of course, if they have said, yes, I've been in an electric car before, you can say, hey, terrific. What kind of car did you drive? And or was it, a brother-in-law's car or such? And then you can ask, did you like it or did they like it? What do they think about it? And again, you're in a conversation. So these are ways to get that conversation started. There's some other techniques. Kylie, next slide, please. Thank you. Often they're with kids, and you've seen the parents going by and the kids kind of pulling, and they're tired or they're bored, and to get them to stop and talk with you is challenging in that situation. But more so if you want to let one or the other of them go out and do test drives, they don't want to saddle the other parent with having to watch the kids if they're bored and they're cranky and all that. So they will turn down the test drive very frequently. So what we do is we think about having activities there also to engage kids. Now you might be horrified to see this girl drawing on a car. It's really quite safe. We use dry erase that come off nicely at the end of the event. In fact, they get so much writing on them, we often have to keep wiping them down throughout the event, so there's more space to draw. But again, lets the kid get involved in doing something. And by the way, I've seen college age people writing on it as well, so it's all ranges. But that lets you then engage the parents and talk about this. The other thing I think is kind of cool is so one or more parents are walking by with some kids and say, hey, I need some help. Could your child, your daughter, your son help me by filling up my electric car? And they're intrigued, and they 9 out of 10 times they say yeah. And then say the kid comes over and you hand the child the plug and let them try to plug in the car. And as they're doing this, again, you've got now the time and the opportunity to really talk, engage the parents. In fact, start off with with the point that there's no gasoline going in this car. This is simply we're just charging it up from any plug or from a charging station around town. So again, and from that you can extend into more as they have questions and such. Kylie, next slide. Now there are other things if you got a little bit more time to prep. You see on the upper right is one of our volunteers that is just terrific. It brings out sort of these little science table with solar and little electric motors and such, and the kids get drawn to it, and they can have a lot of fun learning about the basic things related to the fundamentals of electricity relating to electric cars right there. And people often, she's too busy engaging with the kids, but another owner nearby can talk and engage the parents about how these things apply and how we feel they're so wonderful. Also, we often will create touch displays of some sort, like you see the crossword puzzle on the left. And another very simple, but turns out to be effective, is create little stamps. They ask the parents are going by, ask the kids if they want their hand stamped. And you can get a bunch online or even make up custom stamps with little electric car related symbols. And of course, we all know that for good or bad, I suppose, having a bowl of candy and offering that will stop families with kids. And there. Now, our local utility in Sacramento went ahead and actually did a full face painting table. And the nice thing about that is that took 20 minutes, maybe 10, 20 minutes at the the child was occupied, and one of the parents could easily then go off and do test drive. So Kylie, next slide. So then the challenge is everybody in your team working at the event is so focused on engaging with people and answering questions and sharing their experience that at the end of the event, when you really want to know how many people came to the event, it's really hard for people to remember how many of the members of the community that they really engaged with. What we found to be the most effective is simply to get a little counter. They're under $2 a piece, but they can range as 20 if you sometimes at some retail. So be careful about your pricing. But you can get them for under $2, and you hand them out at the beginning, and people just make a simple click while they're talking, and you collect the counters at the end. And you've got a fairly reliable set of data coming in. And this is good, not just for you to know how many people engage, but you want to be able to share that information with potential sponsors or champions or partners, and not just as a report after the event, but also it helps market your event, the next events you have in the future. You say, well, the last event we had so many test drives and we engaged in so many conversations. Next slide, Kylie. In terms of collecting data, if you can, for those that are serious and are interested in even follow up, have that a tablet or paper-based mechanism to collect their names and addresses. You want to be able to give them follow-up information. Allow them, that's a nice opportunity to allow them to join in Plug in America or Electric Auto Association chapter. And in fact, the EAA is providing as an incentive 3 months free current events magazine as part of their trial membership. And if they like it, they can then kind of go ahead and renew for a year. But if it's not up to them or their priorities change, they just let it, it'll age off after 3 months. There's no credit card required ahead of time or anything such as that, but it gives them an opportunity to find out more. And this is actually a great magazine. I think this last issue is like 50 some pages, color. It's electronic based, but you can easily print it out. In fact, if you have the opportunity to print out like the cover or a couple of the pages and have it on the table to show them what they would be getting, will help you a lot. And we really do want to not just talk to people initially, but keep moving that needle forward and getting them moving toward adoption of EVs. So the follow-up material is useful. Next slide, Kylie. All right. If you do have the chance, and many events are set up to be able to also have a presentation or talk on the side of the event. And these come in really all scales and sizes, anywhere from, I've seen from 5 to 50 people in an event. So it's take advantage of that opportunity. Some people learn in different ways. Sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's a presentation. So and especially the smaller the event, personalize the event more and more. Make sure you're really getting to what their questions are. If you have like 6 people there, that's a good point to be able to ask them what their questions are and take questions throughout your presentation and focus really on the questions. Now, the Electric Auto Association is providing some presentation material so that you're not starting from zero when trying to create a presentation to provide. We've got, in fact, I think Kylie, next slide. Yeah, so initially we've got 4 that are specifically targeted for being able to present at the NDO events. And this is not a finalized, polished presentation, but it's a series of PowerPoint slides that you can take and tweak and adjust to fit the audience that you think you're going to have at your event. So they are ability to update, change them, and subset them or pick and choose from the slides. So there's 4 here, and we're actually adding more for general presentations beyond events such as NDO. And just contact secretary@auto.org and for getting access to those slide decks. But this is part of what the Electric Auto Association does to try to invest and help make doing these events simpler and better and more effective. Next slide, please. Now, if you're going to engage people and you want them to stay and talk with you, or even kids drawing on a car, make sure it's a comfortable location. I mean, shading is really critical, especially in some locations in the South and the West. So or I guess even in Paris where it was 107 or something. Wow, crazy. But anyway, make sure there's shade. Like for the example of plugging in the car or drawing on the car for kids, sometimes those cars just got way too hot to let kids or people touch them. So look for a pop-up. Pop-ups are particularly nice if they can be moved around as the sun moves, but trees and structures are great effective. So next slide, please, Kylie. And if you have it, and staging and preparing for the event, I encourage you to have all your teams that are bringing out display cards for a showcase, bring their portable charger. And you'll have to ask them in advance because often they leave them at home where they should maybe charge at home, but bring that portable charger so you can show that these cars are being plugged in. Of course, when you don't have an electricity source, you're just running the wire underneath the car, and certainly make sure you're safe and you don't have a tripping hazard. But go ahead and show these cars as being electric cars by showing them being plugged down in. On each of the cars, you find if you can put literature there instead of a centralized table or such, that helps people actually, as they're going through and looking at these, take some of that literature and connect it to what they're seeing. And I know some of your members may have Teslas and may have picked up one of those little Tesla kids cars, as you can see down here on the left. Those are great things. Again, help parents love to have the kids jump in them, and we strongly recommend removing the battery. Otherwise, you're going to have parents. The car will almost outrun the parents through the event. So, but in terms of somewhere the kid can sit in, the parent can take a picture of that. It's worked out really well for us. And I think I'm there in the end, Kylie. Do you want to move forward?
Hi, yes, thank you so much, Guy. That was some really great information. All right, so I'm gonna move to the next slide. So I just wanted to go over some common questions that we get. And one of those, the basic question is, what is an EV? So always, be prepared to talk about the difference between a plug-in hybrid and a full electric vehicle. Plug-in hybrids are often a really good introduction vehicle for people who aren't ready to go full electric. And so you can explain that, even just having a plug-in hybrid allows you to run on electricity for most of your commute, most of your daily commute during the week, and still save on gas and, help the environment and all those good things. And then you have gas if you need it on the weekends. So definitely highlight the benefits of both. Also, we often get a question about how long does the battery last? So a lot of people are really worried that they're going to buy this vehicle and in 5 years have to pay a ton of money to replace its main part, the battery. So you want to really reassure people that many manufacturers offer warranties for the batteries. I believe in the zero emission vehicle states, they are required to offer a 10-year warranty. And then a lot of other, a lot of people also offer the 8-year warranty on the battery. So just reassure people that the batteries should last the lifetime of the vehicle. A lot of people ask how expensive is charging at home and in public. So I always use the kind of national average presented by the Department of Energy, which is approximately $1 per electric gallon. And that seems to really help people get a sense of how cheap it is to charge versus using gasoline. Also, it's good to know how many public charging stations are in your area. So I would look that up beforehand and just be ready to talk to people about what's available locally. And then a good thing to note and explain to people is that it's oftentimes you're charging at home. So it's not always about how many public charging stations are available. It's about explaining that fueling an EV works differently than a gas vehicle. So reassure them that they're probably going to charge at home most of the time. So if there's only 4 public charging stations in your area, that's probably enough, depending, of course, on how popular EVs are in your community. All right, and another question is people are worried that producing an EV causes more climate change emissions than it saves, by using electricity. And this is not true. So over the life cycle of an electric vehicle, they actually produce far less climate change emissions than a gas vehicle. And I can when we publish these slides, I'll include a link here that you can where you can read more about this study. The next one is, where can I get my EV repaired? So this is unfortunately a barrier to EV adoption in many communities. If you can, research what repair shops are in the area or what dealerships in the area are prepared to service an electric vehicle. Because sometimes they'll sell the vehicle, but they'll really only be able to change the tires, and they're not qualified to work on the battery or anything else. So it's good to have an answer to this question. All right, and here are links to some helpful printed materials. If you registered a National Drive Electric Week event and you placed your order for printed materials, you will be receiving these. But if you didn't, feel free to use the links and print out as many as you want. The Plug in America EV Guide has a list of all the current, or most of the current models and their prices. The Sierra Club EV fact sheet is just, a basic electric vehicle knowledge guide. Clipper Creek actually put together a really interesting flyer this year. They basically go over the basics of charging, and they also explain what to look for when purchasing a charging station. So they talk about, proper certifications that should be on the station. Then we also have a flyer from our sponsor, NLX. And of course, as you see to the right here, you can print out this Electric Auto Association rack card. In addition to telling people about EAA, there's some resources on the back of that card as well. And if you're in California, this flyer just covers the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project incentive and how to apply for it and the details of that. I also wanted to highlight for hopefully if there's event organizers on this call, Electrify America this year is providing up to $3,000 in funding to do events who want to organize an EV test drive or ride. You can already be organizing one and still apply and just talk about how these funds will really help your event. Just go ahead and email me if you're interested, and I will send you the application. All right, and again, just some useful resources that you can provide to attendees. So the Department of Energy has a vehicle cost calculator where you can calculate the fuel costs of any type of vehicle, gas or plug-in hybrid. Also, you can tell attendees that they can check the EAA chapter map. There might be a local chapter they can connect with. Often these members know a lot about EVs beyond just basic ownership, and so they can answer a lot of questions. Also, if that attendee is interested in showcasing EVs at another event of theirs or at their workplace, often an Electric Auto Association chapter is happy to step up and bring their vehicles to display. Also, Sierra Club has an Electric Vehicles Myths versus Reality webpage, and this is really helpful because it gives you a sense of what they believe about EVs coming to your event and what myths you have to debunk. And it's a good way to expect some common questions. Also, Plug in America has a map of federal and state incentives. We recently updated every state, so it's pretty up to date right now, and you can check out, again, both federal and state incentives by state. And that includes incentives from utilities that attendees may not know about. And we also have webinars like this on the ND resources page, and so you can check that out at any time. Finally, we're going to switch over to go through Plug in America's EV shopping tool. This is called PlugStar.com. So I'm going to switch it over to Anthony Soto, who's going to be presenting on behalf of Eric Cahill.
Thank you, Kylie. Good morning, everyone. Anthony Soto here. I'll be stepping in for Eric Cahill to discuss the EV shopping tool. So for those of you not aware of PlugStar.com, PlugStar.com is Plug in America's EV shopping tool, and it is an online EV shopping tool that shows the benefits of owning an EV Here at PlugStar.com, you can browse and make models of all electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that are available on the market. You can learn about vehicle and charging incentives. You can learn about charging hardware, cost to charge, and where to charge in public. So Kylie mentioned that that was one of the questions that came about quite often earlier in her presentation. And so here we'll show you where to address some of those questions. At PlugStar.com, you can also see a list of events. So not only will you see the National Drive Electric Week list of events, but any events outside the NDU realm will be listed there as well. Here at PlugStar.com, the goal is always to get the end user to purchase an electric vehicle. And so we list out a dealer list of local dealerships available to them by zip code. So once a customer has gone through our shopping tool, selects the vehicle they like and wants to learn more, they can connect to a local dealership for a test drive or to learn more about the cost or to ask questions about inventory. And last, on PlugStar.com, we have links to the EV support line. And the EV support line addresses any additional questions that a customer may have about EV purchases. They can call in or email and get some quick feedback on specific questions, whether it pertains to incentives, vehicles, charging, how to go about visiting a dealership, anything under the umbrella for how to acquire an electric vehicle. We have a EV support line set up for them. On PlugStar.com, there is a menu list of items to select from, but one of the main drivers for PlugStar.com is what we call our EV shopping assistant. And what this is it's a step-by-step walkthrough of the considerations one will need to consider before owning an EV. So things like budget, things like pricing, whether they want to get into a cash or a lease payment, the segment that they're looking at, if they need a vehicle that can hold 5 passengers versus 4, things of that nature. This EV shopping assistant walks them through everything they need to know about before owning an EV. And then based off all their considerations that they need, such as their driving behaviors, where they're going to charge, is it a level 2 charger at home? Do they have the ability to install a level 2 charger at home? The algorithm on the EV shopping tool will output a list of vehicles and rank them according to which vehicle meets their needs the best. And from there, they can learn more about those specific vehicles. So every vehicle on the market that's available to them will be listed after they go through the shopping assistant. However, they'll be ranked in according to an algorithm we've designed that matches EVs best with the end user. And so when you get this deck following this meeting, the links are built in, so you can click on that EV shopping assistant and it will land you directly on where to start the process for walking through that. And as I mentioned, the EV shopping assistant is the main driver on our website, but at any point, if you go to PlugStar.com, you can see a menu list of items to start your EV journey. Here we have highlighted the cars section. This would be where you would browse electric cars. So maybe someone a little more advanced in their EV shopping journey knows what they're kind of looking at, knows what they're interested in. So they might click on this section just to start browsing the cars available to them. And again, on the left side here of this screenshot, you'll see the different filter options. So here one can filter by budget, they can filter by segment, and look at the vehicles available to them in their zip code. So this is a really valuable resource. And again, from this section here, you can also click on vehicles and learn more about each vehicle, or you can compare vehicles to other vehicles. The next item is the incentives page. So as we know, there's many incentives out there. We have federal level incentives, state level incentives, and even local incentives. So we've designed this incentives sheet to be driven by the user's zip code. So once someone enters their zip code at the top section there, the outputs will be listed. Right now, what you're seeing below is incentives that are available to someone in the Plug in America headquarters zip code, but there's a breakdown of the different types of incentives. So the first section is the vehicle tax credits and rebates, and if you were to click on that right arrow, you would see the federal tax credit and the state rebate, depending on the type of electric vehicle you're looking at. Below that, there's charging station incentives, which may not be available to any zip code, but for many zip codes, there are charging incentives, sometimes local. And then, of course, below that, we have electricity discounts. So we talk about contacting your utility provider to learn about potential EV rates or learn about overnight charging to maximize savings. And then at the bottom here, there's driving perks. So the driving perks incentives would be things like, maybe there's a DMV tax that's waived, or a part of a registration fee that's waived. And this isn't applicable to all areas, but it is available for some. And as I mentioned earlier, when visiting PlugStar can start their process with looking at cars. And so here we're looking at a Nissan Leaf. Once someone were to select their vehicle, they can learn more specifics about that vehicle. They can get an overview on the product, including the specs of the vehicle, things like cargo volume. They can look at photos of the vehicle. They can look at popularity of the vehicle and other auto trade reviews. But what you're seeing here in this screenshot is you're seeing a snapshot of the charging section. And again, this is a hot topic here for EV shoppers. So we list out home charging cost. We relist the charging incentives that are available to them. And then we also link out to a home charger's shopping page at the bottom there under the find compatible home charging section. And that will display a laundry list of L2 charging stations available for home install. Earlier, Kylie mentioned public charging, and that's an important topic here. So on this page, you will also see, depending on the zip code, the list of public charging stations that are available to the user, depending on their zip code. And here we link out to PlugShare and use their map to get coverage on all the level 2 and DC fast charging stations that are out there in the public. I also mentioned earlier that for any EV shopping experience to end up in a sale or a transaction of an EV, which is our goal here, we want to always make sure that we're giving a list of dealerships to EV shoppers. So in this section, a customer, if they know exactly what they want, and it's really just about getting into a dealership to test drive and discuss financing for a vehicle, they can click straight onto our dealers page. And when they input their zip code, they can identify or filter a specific make and get an output of all the dealerships that are in their proximity. Here, the customer can contact the dealership directly, or they can visit the dealer website and get more information there. So with that, we've kind of gone through some of the features that are available on PlugStar.com. There are many more, but we think these are the high-level items that are really important to the attendees at your events. And we also have some ideas on best practices for how to share this information with attendees. So at your event, we highly recommend using a tablet or a smartphone to demonstrate PlugStar. And there's some best practices that we've learned over time. And some of those include, well, at an event, pointing to vehicles on display at your event. So for example, if you have a Nissan Leaf or a Chevy Volt at your event on display or available for ride and drive, we recommend clicking on those vehicles and being able to display the vehicle overview and the vehicle details with the attendee in real time. We also suggest pointing to the incentives. And so earlier I mentioned that incentives page where one can see all the incentives that are available to them by entering their zip code. And then of course, for any additional questions, we can always point them to our EV support program. And that comes with a phone call that they can call into or an email that they can ask questions about regarding anything under the umbrella for owning an EV. Some other best practices we've learned over time include placement or reference materials for PlugStar.com. So at your event or at your registration table, you can always refer to the EV guide, which is the printout that everyone here is aware of, and you can highlight PlugStar.com link on the second page of the EV guide. And again, this EV guide has a list of all vehicles available in the market, but remind the attendees at your event that they can always go to PlugStar.com for an updated list of vehicles and also updated pricing on PlugStar.com. Last, we recommend reminding customers to create a PlugStar profile. And what this does is this retains their info, and this allows them to receive continued communications on all the latest and greatest regarding EVs. And then just to kind of leave you with some tidbits, over time, we've learned some of the best ways to engage attendees are to ask questions. So very simple questions such as, is owning an EV more expensive than a gas car? And then pointing them on how to find that out. And again, that's going to be in our browse car sections where you can compare cars. So things of that nature, just trying to get them involved, trying to ask them questions, think about how to best use our website to answer these questions. These are great ways to engage with attendees. We also suggest potentially rewarding attendees with swag. Maybe you have keychains, maybe you have pens or notebooks at your events, and you can give these out for someone to create a PlugStar profile. Or we've also seen, if you want to go a higher level, you can create a raffle, and you can have a grand prize drawing for anyone who enters and creates a PlugStar profile. And even a $50 Visa gift card goes a long way. We've seen a lot of people react very well to this and get engaged and create a PlugStar profile and sign themselves up to learn more about EVs in the future.
Thank you so much, Anthony. That was great. All right. So next, we're going to switch to our Q&A section. So if you, and I'm going to switch to the end slide here. So that's my email there. And the other email you see is the email from our partner at Sierra Club. If you have any questions about contacting press, you can go ahead and email them. All right, so next I'm going to go to the questions and see what questions we received. Okay, so first question, who pays for the installation of DC fast charging stations and where are they installed? So this is different everywhere. Some charging stations are privately funded, others are installed by utilities. One thing I would really recommend is inviting your local utility to attend your event, because a lot of attendees have questions about how much or how charging an EV at home will affect their rate. So if you have a representative who can talk about that, maybe talk about special time of use rates for using an EV, that would be really helpful. And also it's a good way to hopefully spur more charger installations in your community because they see the interest by the public in EVs. All right, next we have any advice on how to answer the complaints that electric cars avoid the gas tax? I mentioned the US oil industry subsidies, but I need some facts or sources to quote. Guy, do you have any experience on this?
I have gotten that asked, and I've had pointed out that in some states that the electric cars are starting to pay additional registration fees and such, and each of the states are looking at it. The bigger question, sometimes it's better almost to redirect this, is that as all cars get more efficient with their miles per gallon, that all the states are being challenged with having enough revenue to work on the roads. So we don't want to look at this as a specific EV problem, but how do we're going to have to change the overall approach to funding roads to solve the improvements and efficiencies on all our vehicles.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great point. And also, we'll try to find some some tips and sources and studies on this topic that'll maybe help you answer the question as well. All right, next, please repeat the cost per charge again. So the figure I quoted, it's on the U.S. Department of Energy, and again, I'll include this link when we post the slides on the NDO website. But they estimate that on average in the U.S., the average electric gallon is about $1 per gallon, as opposed to I think it's $3 per gallon average in the U.S. So that's the figure I use because it's a really easy way for people to kind of see how much they're going to pay for charging in a way they understand, right? Like they know how many gallons it takes to fill up their vehicle, how much they pay at the pump. So if you give them a price per gallon, it's a really accessible way for them to understand how much it costs to charge. All right. So next question, is there also a PlugStar app for Android or Apple? Unfortunately,
Anthony Soto here to answer that question. So there currently is not a PlugStar app available. We are in the process of designing that. What we recommend is instead to Bookstar the website. That way it's available very easily for anyone, the customer or attendees or event organizers to access on their mobile and smartphone. And we can provide simple directions on how to bookmark the website on your phone or your tablet in either an Android or iOS system.
I have another one. Can you read that?
The next question is, does PlugStar list all EVs or only ones currently available in the USA? The answer to that is PlugStar lists all vehicles that are available in the US. We don't have an international presence yet. So any list of vehicles that you'll see on PlugStar is updated on a regular basis with all makes and models sold in the continental US.
This is Guy. Just a follow up on that question that you're answering. Is the tool take advantage of your zip code so you know what vehicles are available, say, in your state? Or is it all US-wide vehicles shown to everybody?
Yeah, so Guy, 1 minute. Can you repeat that question for Anthony?
Sure. Does the tool allow you to sort of limit the vehicles you're looking at by your zip code, so you're only seeing the vehicles that are available in your state, or is it always the full U.S. complement?
Thanks, Guy. That's a great question. And so when someone inputs their zip code, the vehicles that will be displayed will be only the ones that are available in that state. So for example, if I typed in a Los Angeles zip code, I might see a list of every vehicle available. Whereas if I typed in a zip code for another state, I might see a subset of that entire list. But we do a regular scrub of all vehicles that are sold in every state. And based on your zip code, the outputs will respond accordingly.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, so our next question, and I don't think I have the answer to this, but maybe Guy does. Right now, a number of vehicles are only available in limited markets. Where do we direct people who are interested in those vehicles so they can order or get more information?
Where will they find what vehicles are in their market? That's kind of like the answer to that last question. Or are they looking for what vehicles might be available in a different state or different market? Maybe I can get some help on the question.
Yeah, of course. So I think the question is, what happens if people are interested in a vehicle that's not available in their state? Are there options for them to purchase that vehicle in some way or get more information?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure I know enough to. I've always been. It's always been too easy for me being in California to get vehicles. So, but that's one thing that'd be worthwhile to kind of research a bit, and maybe we can get back to them.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. So next we say, one question, one person complained that generating electricity for EVs pollutes as much as is saved. So when I send out these slides and I link to that study about how EVs are cleaner over their life cycle, part of that study actually looks at how electricity is generated across the US. And it does answer that question that even, even if you're using electricity produced by coal or something other than a clean energy source, EVs are still produce less carbon emissions over their lifetime. So that study will go into more detail, but it's actually really, really helpful and a really good study.
You can credit the Union of Concerned Scientists for having done a very
Exactly.
extensive study on that.
Yes, yeah. All right. Okay. So I have a dealer interested in showcasing their Hyundai Kona EV. Any way to forward this webinar to the general manager or associates? So again, this webinar recording and the slides will all be posted on the Endu resources page. You can find any of our past webinars there, even from past years as well. So you'll be able to forward that link to them. And then we have another note here. The Great Plains Institute has a great report out on the taxes paid at the time of purchase that shows EV drivers contribute more that way to the Highway Trust Fund than conventional vehicles. So thank you so much. That's really great to know, and I'll definitely share that link after this so everyone can take a look.
Kylie, was there a link in that message so we can follow up on that? I'd love to hear about that.
Yes, there is a link in that message. And I'm going to copy that actually right now. Okay. All right. So next question. So it says there's a need for pre-owned and affordable EVs that are available. So Plug in America, actually, we did just publish a used EV buyer's guide. I'll be sure to link to that as well. And that'll be, hopefully a useful resource for your attendees.
And one of the presentations that we provide material for is focused on the used market and how the differences between buying a new car and a used EV.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Next question. Any tips on how to get the utilities to participate? So just, I think maybe both Guy and I can answer this, but from my experience, I would just really emphasize with your utility that EVs are a revenue source for them. Remind them that EVs will make the money. So it's in their best interest to come out and support EVs or just answer people's questions about charging at home so they can help increase EV adoption. And also, you can basically tell them that at the event they'll have a booth and maybe they have their logo on the Endu event page. So really just show them how much visibility they're going to get by participating.
It's also that would be important to them is to making sure they're engaged in the new emerging EV world, because last thing they want to do is to find a lot of people are adopting EVs and maybe 4 people on a cul-de-sac and they suddenly have transformer issues. They want to be connected and understand what's going on and where people are buying electric cars and be able to have a connection in there so they can be informed about this through either permits or a variety of issues. But you want to make the message to them as be surprised as EV adoption takes place. You want to be engaged.
Awesome, thank you. And actually, we have a couple great notes here in the chat. Well, actually, before we get to those really good comments by attendees, there's one question. Does the Electric Auto Association, or Plug in America, I suppose, do anything to promote installation in key areas without chargers? And I would say from Plug in America's standpoint, just by participating in National Drive Electric Week and increasing the amount of EV awareness you're doing in your community, that's really the main thing we focus on to promote charger installation, because I think utilities and even businesses, they need to see a demand for EVs to invest in putting the charging station in. But remember that you can still own an EV and charge at home, and still increase EV adoption without that charging station. So you can still create that demand before the station is there.
And with the rollout of the funds from Electrify America, as a result of the Dieselgate event, sometimes it's still good for many states. It's still an opportunity to engage and see how the monies that are going to each state as a result from that settlement, how they're deployed. Most of the states, I think, are going with a lot of EV fast charging. So you might check in with your state and see what they're planning to do, and try to give them the guidance of your experience as an EV owner, what that means or such. So there's another venue or avenue.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I'll try to find a link or a page that easily allows you to see how your state is using the settlement funds. All right, and so we just had some comments from people in answer to the past questions we went over about how to purchase an EV that isn't available in your state. One person said that a dealer in a nearby state sold them their car. I'm not advocating this, of course, officially, because I don't know what goes along with that, if there's maybe some tax issues or anything like that, but someone has done it. So maybe if you're on an EV owner forum, you can ask that question and give you more details.
I'd love to hear someone actually write up their experience and their information, and we can maybe include that in an issue of current events.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, so you saw the guy's email in this webinar. Be sure to email him if you're interested in sharing your experience.
Well, in fact, I just put my email up here, so I'm not on the screen here. You can always reach me at secretary@electricauto.org.
Great, thank you so much. And then also another comment is, speaking to the generation of electricity for EVs, many companies offer opt-in programs to make sure your electricity comes from renewable energy sources. So that's another option for people who want to make sure they're supporting clean energy. All right. So, and we have a comment here. Has anyone ever run a winter version of Endu to show how great EVs perform in freezing climates? So I don't know that, Guy and I, being from California, have experience doing an EV event in a winter climate, but that sounds like a really great story for the current events. If you want to email Guy Hall about your experience, just to show how well they can perform even in the cold.
Yeah, I would love someone to contribute their experience.
Okay, so that's it for us today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope you found this helpful. And of course, we will post the slides and the recording of this webinar online, so you can email us at any time with further questions, or pass our email along to people you think might be able to connect with us and work with us on some projects.
And can we give some credit to our sponsors, Kylie?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you so much to our national sponsor. The Nissan Leaf is our exclusive automotive sponsor. We also have our silver level sponsors, Clipper Creek and the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, along with NLX. So be on the lookout. Their flyers, if you order printed materials, you'll receive their flyers. And yeah, we hope you find them useful and support our sponsors.
There was a video disruption when you said the auto supplier. Who was that?
Oh, NLX, ENELX. So they recently came in as a sponsor, and you can click through to their website using the link at the bottom of the Endu website. Every sponsor has a link to their website if you want to learn more. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to our speakers, and have a great day.